Hello everyone and welcome back to the F1 2019 career mode. Apologies for the delay between episodes. I am not Tiamat Marduk or Arava. I cannot make videos that quickly and I've been busy all week and I'll be quite busy next week as well. So I've been working on this in my spare time. Whenever I have the time in my spare time. So in the last episode we went through F2 in 2018 and we've joined F1 in 2019, and there's our teammate Kimi Räikkönen. And as Emma is explaining, he's also our first rival. Teammate is always your first rival. There's a second one that you're able to choose. Because we're so early on, we're unable to do that. However, the season hasn't even begun yet, and we're already able to do some R&D. The Alfa Romeo is the second worst car on the grid. It has the second best engine, but the aero is pretty bad and the chassis isn't that good either. So I reckon it's about time we make an upgrade already. There's 4 things you can upgrade: the power unit through either engine power, ERS, or fuel saving; the aero through front downforce, rear downforce, and drag; the chassis through weight redistribution, weight reduction, the brakes, and tyre wear; and maintenance. Yes, reliability, general maintenance, gearbox, ICE, basically all improving the reliability of every single engine component. And it's a good thing to get this one done first. General maintenance. All the parts in the engine wear very quickly if you don't take anything, as Arava found out in his career mode. Anyway, that's enough of an introduction, I think. We're trying to keep this video quite short compared to the last one. Let's jump in to practice.
Welcome to Melbourne and the inaugural event of the F1 2019 Championship season. The session is starting shortly and there's a real sense of anticipation in the air. A feeling that anything can happen this year, and if it does, well, this weekend could be the opening chapter to one of the most exciting F1 seasons ever. Joining me in the commentary box is, of course, Anthony Davidson. And it's great to have you back again. What can you tell us about this year's roster? There are some new faces this year, aren't there?
Absolutely, Crofty. There's been a number of interesting signings over the last few months. Where would you like to start?
Let's talk about McDonald.
Right, well, this is definitely someone to keep an eye on. They'll be familiar to anyone who follows the Formula 2 Championship, where they performed extremely well last year. It's worth noting that their teammate in F2, Lucas Weber, is also making his debut in Formula 1 this weekend. Now, there was an incident where they went against their own team's instructions to let Lucas past. They apologised for it at the time, and it seemed as though there were no hard feelings. But it would be interesting to see what kind of rivalry might develop now they're no longer constrained by driving for the same team.
Those two aren't the only new faces from Formula 2 this season, are they?
No, this season will introduce fans to George Russell and Lando Norris, 2 very promising young British drivers. Plus we'll meet Alexander Albon from Thailand, and finally Devon Butler. Now, Devon was a bit of a controversial figure in Formula 2 last year. He racked up a lot of penalties over the course of the season, including one where he collided with his closest rival. It was a nasty clip. Now, certainly after the event, they were nothing but professional in terms of how they spoke about the incident with Devon, but it's hard to imagine them being polite about it behind closed doors. I think this rival will be one to keep an eye on over the next few races, as both drivers take their first steps into the world of Formula 1.
So, practice is often skimmed over in a lot of the videos that the larger YouTubers do. Mainly because it's rather routine and it's boring. Usually they'll only feature it if something happened, like, oh, I had a big crash in practice 2. In this, I've decided I'm probably not going to show practice at all in any of my videos, except for this one occasion where basically I just show you what it's really for. I'm not showing too much, just one of the practice programs out of 6 practice programs. This is the drive out, the first ever career mode lap in an F1 car for me, as you might expect. We're driving out to do track acclimatization and also to get used to the new handling model. The 2019 cars do drive somewhat differently to the 2018 cars. In F1 2018, the cars felt so planted, whilst these ones are rather understeery, and you have to brake a lot sooner. So beginning of the first full lap, and this is what track acclimatization is. You have to go through these gates, and I'm already a fairly competent driver, so I know what I'm doing. Going through the gates, I'm fairly accurate since I'm on a gamepad. I may have a few slip-ups like that one, so that turn 3 only ended up being a green. Same with turn 4. As you would expect, not the greatest out of the box, but in time I should hopefully improve. Just gotta try and remember that this isn't F1 2018 anymore. The cars do handle rather differently. I did have slip-ups. Here, for example, I ran over the curb and lost the back end. Yeah, the curbs on this game have become rather lethal. You'd so much as brush them and that happens. Front wheeling damaged, spun around, and here's another one from the same session. Went wide at turn 12, fortunately got off scot-free. As I'm pretty sure I mentioned in the last video, our two main rivals from F2 are here. Devon Butler has joined Scuderia Toro Rosso, driving that sort of royal blue Toro Rosso STR14 with the Honda power unit. Lucas Weber has gone to Williams. He's now partnered with George Russell, I believe, driving what in real life is the woeful FW42, but the performance patch hasn't come along yet, so the Williams is somehow doing rather better than it should in real life, and that's probably because of its Mercedes engine. So, practice 1, I completed 4 of the programs, perfected them as well, did 10 laps, basically got my money's worth out of this session and got myself 385 resource points, and your reputation goes up as well. Not going to show the other 2 practice sessions, just run-of-the-mill stuff really, but we've got 1,000 R&D points, so that means we can actually buy something else to make our car a little bit better. So I figure something to do with downforce, but then I remember, you know what, let's actually use quality control. Buy a quality control upgrade instead. That means the chances that the upgrade will fail will be less. Anyway, that's enough of practice. Let's get into qualifying.
We're just about ready to kick off today's qualifying here in Melbourne. It's the Australian Grand Prix. And as we wait, poised for the start of what will hopefully be a thrilling qualifying, why don't you tell us, Anthony Davidson, about the things you can do to really get the most out of a car in a session like this?
Well, you're largely limited by the Parc Fermé regulations, of course. Back in the old days, pre-2004, you'd work on both a qualifying setup and a race setup over practice, and then swap them over after qualifying. So the race car was quite different at times to the qualifying car. Nowadays, though, you have to find a compromise that works for both. There are a few things that you can still adjust during the session, such as the differential, the brake bias, and the front wing angle, but that's about it. So it's more about optimizing what you do have and adapting your own style to suit the track conditions.
So, welcome to qualifying in the Alfa Romeo Sauber. We are on our first flying lap of this session. If you don't know how F1 works, qualifying is split into 3 sessions: Q1, Q2 and Q3. Q1 decides grid slots P15 to P20, Q2 decides P11 to P15, and Q1 is the top 10 shootout, P1 to 10. So that quick description of what qualifying is about out of the way, let's move on to how the Alfa performs. It's not the best car, obviously. Second worst on the grid, supposedly, though with 98% on the AI, it's a lot better than it would be. Australia is also a typically forgiving circuit, except for this one chicane, fast left right, turns 11 and 12. That time I got it fairly okay. I hit the bollard on the inside, but that was about it. Most of the time it's kind of difficult. It's the fast turns that are, well, the fast turns that are also kind of sharp. They don't really work for me. I like the fast long turns, like the long right-hander at Monza. So on this circuit, the Alfa Romeo performed reasonably well, except for one thing: understeer. Our first lap wasn't great. We've only gone a P14 out of 20. We are at risk of being knocked out of Q1. It's better than Kimi Raikkonen's done though, he's a P19. We'll be running on board once again. The Alpha really quite struggles with understeer. Then again, all of the cars do. Like, even the Mercedes struggles quite a lot with understeer. You have to turn in really quite early in order to actually make the turn. And sometimes you risk cutting the corner, which is not good. The cars this year also have to go down an extra gear, which is kind of awkward, because last year you could take turns 3 and 4 there, in third go up 1 gear to 4th. This time you've got to go down to 2nd and then quickly shift up to 4th. It doesn't really work for me. I'm too used to 2018. Another problem that the Alpha has: brakes. I didn't really have too much of a problem in this session, but, well, I'm not sure if this is also a problem with the 2019 cars in general, or if it's just something that is wrong with the Alpha. But brakes are really bad this year. Not so much on this track, but, well, we'll be seeing that in Bahrain in the next episode. Anyway, coming through the final 2 turns of this final lap in qualifying, we're a few tenths up. We will improve on our P14 time. We might have got through on that P14 time, but I wanted to make sure. You always have to make sure, cover whatever losses you might gain, if that even makes sense. We go up to P6 with 4 minutes left of the session, and we fall down to P9, but both me and Kimi get through to Q2. So, Q2, I decide to do something that I've seen the other YouTubers doing. I'm going to try and qualify on mediums, but I only have one new set of soft tyres. I had to go out on a scrubbed set to set a banker time. Yeah, that's not good. The goal of going out on the scrubbed set, to set a time that can be beaten by the medium tyres. So we're approaching the end of the banker lap of Q2 on the old set of scrubbed tyres, and it's going to get us through to P10, but we will fall down to P11, which is the knockout zone for Q2. Actually, no, it's P9. So quickly into the garage then. Some cars are leaving the pits to make their second and final lap of Q2 in an effort to get into Q3, or just set their final qualifying position. And we're going out as well on a brand new set of medium tyres. These will be faster than the scrubbed set of softs, but not by much, and they're definitely slower than the softs that all the other cars are taking. We are the only car on medium tyres in Q2, and I think I know why, but we'll get into that later. So it's not a particularly great start to the lap. We're a couple hundredths down, 4 hundredths down. It's not great, but it's not terrible. Hard braking in to turn 3, and the quick acceleration and lift off the throttle for turn 4 through the semi-fast right-hander of turn 5, and we go up by a few hundredths instead of down. But this will not improve our time enough to get out of the elimination zone. But suddenly we're up by an entire tenth. tenth and a half. We're gaining. Maybe we have a little bit of help from Hulkenberg, but Hulkenberg is he's going to pull off to the side, so he won't be much of a detriment to us. We are now 2/10 up. Where have we found this time? Clearly the scrubbed set of softs were really past their prime. I mean, obviously they were scrubbed. What do you know, a used set of soft tyres are nowhere near as good as a fresh set of mediums. We are still 2/10 up, and that time is still decreasing. We are now, I think that's 4/10 up. This preview window I have is quite small. I think it's down a bit to 3/10, but that is still a lot faster than what we had on the banker lap. We've gone, I think, about 2.5 tenths faster than we did. We are now in P10 on medium tyres, and there we managed to get through by the skin of our teeth, but Kimi Raikkonen failed to qualify for Q3, and as I said, we were the only team on medium tyres. And so we're now in Q3 for the top 10 shootout in an Alfa Romeo. And so this is our first lap of Q3, and it's not going to be particularly great. Well, actually, we went 4th, but then we immediately went down to 5th. That's because not everyone in the session had set their time, and there goes Charles Leclerc racing off. Later on, with only 2 minutes 40 seconds of the session not remaining, we are in 9th place, meaning we stand a chance of getting a decent points haul. So I think when we're going to jump to the beginning of that lap, and we're going to leave you on board for the entire lap with no commentary. Let's get into it, shall we?
Excellent lap. We're really pleased.
We're all ready for tomorrow's race, but before we begin, let's have a quick look at those who will be fronting the grid. Leclerc, Vettel and Max Verstappen. Goodbye for now then, but we're really just getting started. Make sure to join us again for Lights Out tomorrow.
So, P7 on the grid. Not bad for the second worst car on the grid, but then again, 98% AI.
Great work out there today. Let's have your thoughts. It's been a great qualifying session for you. Are you going to carry that momentum into the race?
I mean, hopefully. I'm in the second worst car on the grid, but hey, I'll try.
You scraped the walls a few times. Were you struggling for grip?
Yes, because the car is understeery as hell, and the car's really floaty and slides around a lot.
Well, thanks anyway.
So how was I really feeling before the start of this race? Well, I'll be honest, I was a little nervous. I mean, it was my first full proper race on the game in a backmarker car, and I was expecting things to go quite wrong, and the AI to be far too aggressive, and yeah, but you know what? I was gonna do my best to try and win. Well, you know, win as much as an Alfa Romeo can.
Well done. Very solid results. You're looking good for the race.
New drivers, new cars, it's a new Formula One season. But it's the same Albert Park that we've come to know and love for more than 2 decades now that plays host to round 1 of a 21-race championship that takes us from here in Australia, across the globe, and the eventual season finale at the Yas Island circuit in Abu Dhabi. Just south of Melbourne's downtown business centre is the one and only Albert Park circuit. 3.3 miles of public roads, closed for the weekend of course, make for a bumpy circuit with little undulation. There are 16 corners around the lake and a couple of good passing opportunities here as well, thanks in part to the DRS zones into turns 1, 3 and 13. We have plenty of changes to the sport this year with tweaks to the regulations, a fresh-looking spread of tyre compounds, and of course some changes to the roster of car manufacturers. It's goodbye to Sauber and hello once again to the classic name of Alfa Romeo in Formula One. It's also goodbye to Force India. They've been rebranded as Racing Point. Joining me to take you through all the action of the 2019 Formula One season is Anthony Davidson. And it's great to have you with us.
Thanks, Crofty. Always happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to getting underway. Last year was Mercedes' 5th Constructors' title in a row, although for the first half of the season it was absolutely neck and neck with the Ferraris. Hopefully this year we can see the chasing pack take that final step, as I'd love to see a championship contest all the way up to the final race in Abu Dhabi. Another story to keep an eye on is the performance of Red Bull, who have switched to the Honda power unit this year. What that will mean for both their performance and reliability remains to be seen.
With the race minutes away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and starting alongside him P2 is Sebastian Vettel. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas, and Gasly, McDonald, Perez, Magnussen, and Daniel Ricciardo, Grosjean, Sainz, Kimi Raikkonen, and Stroll, Hülkenberg, Norris, George Russell, and Devon Butler. Weber and Alexander Albon picks up the last spot on the grid. Now it's almost time to lights out, so let's go down to the track.
So the big moment is nearly upon us. The first Grand Prix of this virtual 2019 F1 season. We are starting 7th on the grid in a car that should be a toaster. And in a way it is a toaster, because it gets really quite hot during the race. It does turn out that I did kind of mess up on the strategy. Because you see, being the only person on mediums on the grid means I'm going to have a worse start. I'll be able to go on for longer, but the thing is, it's a one-stop strategy for the soft runners, which means I have inhibited myself. I'm going to have a worse start, I'm going to be slower at the start, but hey, at least I'll go on for longer, and I'll have fresher hard tyres, which should be a good thing. Anyway, the grid is now forming up, the race is about to start, the lights are coming on. And we're off! And it's, as predicted, a very poor start from the medium-shod Alfa Romeo Sauber. We got very close to Pierre Gasly there, and we were forced to run wide. We are now accompanied by Sergio Perez in the Racing Point to our immediate right. Because of our poor exit from turn 2, he got the run on us, but we managed to pull ahead in the braking zone to turn 3, but we run wide into turn 4, and he manages to overtake through turn 5, and he's going to keep that place. Okay, music, you can go away now. So yes, as I said, it was a very poor start for myself, and as we can see, Sergio Perez in the very bright pink and blue Racing Point has got well ahead of us. And because I'm on medium tyres, it means my pace, which is already not very good because I'm an Alfa Romeo, is even worse because we're on the second hardest tyre. Well, though it's also, in a way, the second softest tyre, so it's the medium tyre because it's in the middle. Who would have known? My poor start is really coming back to haunt me, and the first lap isn't even over yet because Perez is pulling away and we are falling behind and creating a lovely little train behind us. We are currently, I should think, the slowest man on the grid, Kevin Magnussen, with the help of only engine power, superior aerodynamics and the slipstream. Gets very, very close to us. He wants to overtake. He's desperate to overtake. We're going to brake hard into turn 3 and shut him out best I can and make our way through turn 4. We're going wide because of the terrible understeer, the poor aerodynamics of the Alfa Romeo. But we're going to fight to keep ourselves in the points. I'm malfunctioning, help. So later on in lap 2, we are approaching the end of the lap, but that also means the beginning of lap 3, where DRS will be activated. There we go, DRS enabled. So any cars within a second of me will be able to get drag reduction system, meaning they can get a sort of boost of speed. As I said it's in the F2 episode, it's like NOS, except it's not. And there's some prime candidates for that, for the DRS, right behind me in the form of the two Haas cars. Grosjean, who has overtaken his teammate Kevin Magnussen. The next DRS zone is not until turn 13, but that doesn't mean that they won't overtake me before then by pure pace alone. And Grosjean is starting to get rather close. Look at those double arrows filling up. They're gonna turn red, and he's going on the inside end. He's spun us out, and that's a terrible crash. And we just gotta look at that. That is something I don't like about the AI in this game. In fact, the AI since 2017, because they'll get on your inside and they'll spin you out with these pit maneuvers, and that's not very smart. And so, because I thought it wasn't smart, I'm pretending it didn't happen by using a flashback, and we've managed to cut Grosjean out of the equation for now, placing him behind us once again. I do use flashbacks, you're going to have to get used to them. So we're approaching the pit straight now, and Grosjean is going to get DRS. He's got the aid of Slipstream as well. He is closing right up to us, but is it going to be enough for him to pass? We make contact once again. He pushes us wide, and he's got the place on us for now. He's got DRS again, but we are going to make a dive up the inside and retake the position. Go down to first gear in order to slow down enough. That is continuing to maintain P8, but Grosjean is looking mighty angry at that. He wants that position back, or rather he wants to take it and secure it. Are we pulling away though? Are our mediums starting to get better than the softs? Because the softs don't last as long. So, could it be? Well, we're still the engine, the locomotive of the nice little train. Grosjean is going to make another attempt. It's not enough. We're going through turns 11 and 12, not an ideal overtaking position. We go wide onto the grass, and that means Grosjean is able to re-overtake us. Magnussen's going to try as well. Oh no, that's not Magnussen, that's Hulkenberg. So we lose 2 positions in the space of a single corner to Grosjean and Hulkenberg. That is absolutely terrible luck, but then again, the Alpha really does not perform well on medium tyres. Heavy fuel load, and yeah, it's just not doing all too hot, and I think it's safe to say... Oh, Grosjean locks up, but I think it's safe to say that we have lost those 2 positions. We're going to have to consolidate for now. Remain in a P10, or will we? But we make the dive up. Hulkenberg's inside, we make contact and we push him wide. That was a very dirty overtake, kind of reminiscent of the move we made on Weber. Grosjean is really pulling away from us. Our mediums are not doing too hot. Hulkenberg is now desperate to re-overtake, take back P9. But I dare say he may well be at a disadvantage now, because those soft tyres will probably be double the wear and tear of my mediums. He could be facing 40% wear on his tyres, or maybe 50% wear, that he will have to come in for a pit stop, but he is right up our chuff. Is he going to be able to overtake us in the DRS zone through turn 13? Not with a turn like that. Yes, he may well be able to. He is getting right very close to us, but we go defensive, take the inside, keeping him on the outside, meaning he is not going to have the best exits, and he retakes his position behind us. We are now approaching the pit straight. He could get DRS here, and he is staying behind us. He is not coming into the pits just yet, which means he thinks he may well be able to take the position. We are making a defensive move. He goes up the inside. Is there anything we can do to take back the position? Yes, there is. We can make a switchback move, the Arava trademark move, and we are back in P9. Hulkenberg was not there for very long, meaning he is now at a disadvantage. I'd say a rather significant disadvantage. His soft tyres will be falling off the cliff around now, whilst my mediums still have quite a bit of life left in them. Of course, there is one way to get back P9. Pit maneuver! Yes, the trademark AI move! Codemasters, what is this? What is this AI? Right? I know it's supposed to be more aggressive, but when a car is practically intentionally pulling world's wildest police chases on you, that's not great. Alright, that's not fun. So obviously I'm once again going to flashback and make the race more sensible. But, you know, I know I can't do this all the time. We've got to have some drama in this series, right? Well, maybe. Who knows? We'll see. Heading in to turns 11 and 12, Hulkenberg is right on our tail. We got a poor exit, which means not only is he going to get the DRS assisted overtake, it's also going to be a typical overtake because I had a bad exit. He ran a little wide. I thought maybe I could get it, but I ran wide as well. So that is P9 lost to Hulkenberg, at least for now. But we are still in the points. We can still at least get a single solitary point in 10th place. We get DRS assistance because we were within a second of Hulkenberg, so maybe we can take P9 back. We are closing in, but it's not enough. There is at least another DRS zone out of turn 2, but he gets a stellar exit and he is shooting off down the road. And it's a poor entry into turn 3. And I do believe Hulkenberg is, yeah, he's just shooting off into the distance now. And later on that lap, there he is. He's well out of DRS range. And that's when I noticed some of the top runners have come in for their pit stops. And they're on hard tyres. They've gone from softs to hards. And that's when I realised my strategy is possibly a little balked. I thought that Hulkenberg's soft tyres should be falling off the cliff, and, you know, they have, because I have caught up to him somewhat. But they've gone on until at lap 10 at the least, whilst my pit window for switching from mediums to hards was lap 12. I've still got 2 more laps to go. But I suppose this is at least a bit of an advantage for me, because that means Hulkenberg's softs are really not doing all that hot, whilst my mediums are at least still a bit grippy. So over the course of the past lap or two, we have been steadily reeling Hulkenberg in, as his soft tyres are now basically, well, canvas. And we are going to make a dive bomb into turn, I don't remember, turn 9. We get the move done. We are back up into P9, well, effective P9. We are currently in a podium position, but that's because the higher runners, such as the Ferraris, the Red Bulls, and the Mercedes, have already made their pit stops, and we have Charles Leclerc right behind us. We're gonna let him through. No point in fighting one of the better cars on the grid. He locked up though, and there was a bit of contact. No damage to the front wing. We are on reduced damage though, so maybe at some point I will increase the damage. As Charles flies off into the distance, Lewis Hamilton catches up, and we're also going to let him through. I'd like to inhibit him a bit, but we just let him through, and that might have been actually a crucial move for me to make. May well have changed the course of the race for the top runners, because Hamilton is now chasing down Charles Leclerc, the pole sitter. So, after an uneventful lap 11 and most of lap 12, we are now coming in for our pit stop. From medium tyres to hard tyres. The pit assist takes over. I am never really going to use the manual pit system. Into the pits also comes the McLaren of Lando Norris, and I think a Toro Rosso, possibly Devon Butler. Decent stop, get through the pit stop phase. We are now onto the tyres that are supposed to go to the end of the race, and we come up behind a little gaggle of cars, the Williams of George Russell, both of the Renaults. That's 2 or 3, possibly 4 cars, very close to one another. All of them fighting over the final points-paying position, P10. All of them want that single point. Russell has got past Daniel Ricciardo, who I do believe he's on fresh hards, and he is going to be our first victim, but they are taking up the entire road. Let's see what we can do. We make the move on Ricardo. Hulkenberg locks up and we make contact, and that causes a little bit of damage to our front wing. We are not going to flashback that one. We are going to go the rest of the race with a damaged front wing. We make the move on Hulkenberg as well, and we have overtaken all 3 of those runners, and we are now back in P9. That is a pretty good run, I should think. And we're going to be increasing the distance upon them. I am now in the groove. I have finally got used to the car, fallen into a rhythm. As I was saying earlier, the Alpha just does not run very well with heavy race fuel on the harder tyres. Oddly enough, George Russell has got into P10, which is really quite odd because the Williams shouldn't be that good. Then again, it's the F1 game, so what do you expect? A few laps go by and we've maintained a good distance to the pack behind, but then, after Russell was overtaken by Ricciardo, Ricciardo was overtaken by Lance Stroll in the racing point. You see, Stroll is on medium tyres, which means he's actually going a bit faster than I am. I may be maintaining a good pace, but, well, he was about 4 seconds behind, and now he's 3.6 seconds behind. He is gaining on me really quite quickly. Remember, he was 3.6 seconds behind at the beginning of lap 20. We go through sector 1, and now he's 3.29 seconds behind. 3.3. He is getting closer to me. That's not good. Remember, I'm only in an Alfa Romeo. It's not the best car on the grid. He is now only 3 seconds behind. He is gaining on me like a speeding bullet. And suddenly, I'm starting to feel a bit under pressure, and I'm going to start making a bit more mistakes. But then, Devon Butler is out of the session, and that restores a bit of my confidence. Yes, he's in the Toro Rosso, he's ahead of his teammate Alex Albon, and suddenly, his engine just conks out, and he starts... Well, it's like he's using the pit lane limiter. Oh dear, Devon, couldn't have happened to a nicer person. With the encroaching Lance Stroll and the confidence boost that was Devon Butler retiring, we are starting to pull away from Stroll a little bit. We've got to maintain this rhythm. We have to keep pushing. But look at the skies. Things are starting to get a little dark. Meanwhile, we're still pulling away from Lance Stroll. 3.4 seconds at Sector 1. That's 4/10 in about a sector of a lap. Now it's 3.6. Either his medium tyres are falling off the cliff, or I'm just being a bit more consistent, though that wasn't a very consistent thing to do. Running over the curbs at turn 4. Through the Sector 1 and 2 again. How far behind is he? 3.7 seconds. Indeed, we are performing much better than Lance Stroll. And apologies for recording over the radio message, but our engineer has just confirmed rain is on the way. And we're on dry tyres. But there's only 5 laps of this race left, so I'm wondering, is it really going to be necessary to pull into the pits to change onto a set of intermediate tyres? Time will tell if the rain will come right at the end, on the last lap, or just before. Unfortunately, it seems Lance Stroll has received the same information and he's been incensed, because now he's only 2.6 seconds behind. The gap has closed a lot. He wants to get ahead of me before the rain falls, decrease my chances of overtaking him, or re-overtaking him, when he eventually, inevitably catches up. Or at least, I think it's going to be inevitable. We are making the most of the last final minutes of dry time. 2.7 seconds ahead. We are getting a bit more space from Lance.
Watch the conditions. We think there's rain coming pretty soon. Dries seem like the best tyre for now.
So Jeff the engineer is absolutely sure that rain is just around the corner, and Lance Stroll is plateauing around 2.3, 2.4 seconds behind me. He's not gaining on me, but he's not really falling back either. And then, weather report.
We've got a 15-minute spout of light rain, which will then move into heavy rain conditions. Dries seem like the fastest tyre at the moment.
And now you can just about see on the screen that the rain has begun to fall. This is going to potentially change the final 2 laps of the race. It's actually coming down quite fast. There's a lot of rain droplets on the screen. And this is going to change the way the car performs, because I'm on slick tyres, but not the treaded wet tyres, which means I'm going to start aquaplaning. Grip is going to fall off the cliff, and already I'm starting to slide and went wide at turn 12. But it's not going to change much except for how Lance Stroll is performing, because now he is dropping back as Carlos Sainz retires from the session. The AI on F1 2019 do not appear to work very well in the rain. There's going to be a patch and that will apparently improve their performance, but as of now, they are not that good, and so Lance Stroll has dropped back a hell of a lot on this final lap of the Australian Grand Prix. He is now 4 seconds behind. It's gonna take a miracle for him to be able to overtake, but, well, this could have been the miracle. Misjudged the braking zone into turn 3, and that has allowed Lance to catch right back up, but clearly, because he is AI, he is not that confident in the rain on his slick tyres. So he is going to lose all that time again, as Lewis Hamilton wins the Australian Grand Prix. We saw earlier he was behind Charles Leclerc, and I'm wondering if I had inhibited him a bit more when he passed me earlier after the pit stops. I wonder if maybe it would have been Charles who won. But Mercedes winning in the game, as they always do in real life. That is just how it goes, I'm afraid. But for us, it's been a race of up and downs, but that is our first points in F1. 9th place.
Okay, pick up rubber and bring it home.
The Mercedes team pulled out a fantastic performance today. They should be proud. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
I think a large part of the result comes down to temperament. They were able to keep their heads when everyone around them was losing theirs, and that's allowed them to get the best out of the car, to maximise the strategy, and to stay out of trouble.
After an excellent performance at the Grand Prix, I'm sure there'll be plenty of celebrations tonight amongst the Mercedes team, and they certainly deserve it. incredible performance, Lewis Hamilton secures the top spot in the Drivers' Championship. After an incredible day of racing, who was your driver of the day, Ant?
Well, I have to give it to Lucas Weber. Cool, calm, collected, a very consistent performance, and one that he can definitely be proud of today.
So, it's been a fairly good weekend for Alfa Romeo Racing. 9th place for the F2 rookie, and out of the points, but a still fairly good finishing position for the veteran, Kimi Raikkonen. 12th place, 9th place, 2 points for me. That puts Alfa Romeo a few places up above the other teams. 6th place in the constructors' standings. It's not gonna last, but it's a good start, nonetheless.
Good day today. Let's have your take on it. It wasn't the cleanest race today, was it?
Well, if you're talking about the 2 times that Hulkenberg and Grosjean decided to pit maneuver me, yes.
You left a lot of paint on the walls today. Were you struggling for grip, or did you just misjudge some corners?
I don't like that it doesn't allow you to say, I misjudged some corners.
Well, thanks anyway.
So, after all that, we do get a bit of a look at the press clippings that Lucas Weber and Devon Butler have given, that Emma has got. It's rather annoying though. The press clippings have these scroll bars on them, but it doesn't tell you how to use them. Turns out that you're supposed to use the right stick on your Xbox controller in order to scroll through the interview transcript. But it doesn't tell you that. So, you know, Codemasters, it would be nice to know that. A successful weekend for the team gives us 1,246 R&D points, which means we are going to spend 1,000 of those points on a front wing downforce upgrade. That is going to take 2 weeks in order to do. It's going to take until the Chinese Grand Prix for that to go onto the car. So that was episode 2 of the career mode, and the first race of the F1 2019 season in the career mode. Yeah, this video has ended up being a little bit longer than the F2 episode, but hopefully the next one should be shorter. I'm going to refine my techniques. I'm going to leave you with the highlights of that race. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.